Stop. Just stop for a moment. Don't scroll. Because if this message reached you today, something may have already changed. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. You didn't search for this by accident. Out of millions of videos, somehow your eyes stopped here. Why? What made your attention pause at this exact moment? Most people would say it was only an algorithm. But have you ever noticed that some moments in life refuse to feel random? Sometimes a single sentence, a single meeting, a single decision quietly changes everything that comes after it. So let me ask you something. Have you felt like something invisible has been holding your life back? Like every time you got close to success, something happened. A payment was delayed. An opportunity disappeared. Someone walked away. Your confidence suddenly faded. It felt as if abundance could see you, but could never quite reach you. Now listen carefully. What if those delays were never proof that abundance rejected you? What if they were proof that you were tuning to the wrong frequency without even knowing it? Because abundance doesn't chase people. It responds to what they quietly become. And something inside you may have shifted before you even pressed play. Maybe you've noticed it already. The things that once excited you don't feel the same anymore. Old conversations drain your energy. Certain places suddenly feel heavy. You keep thinking about a different future, even when you try not to. That isn't always confusion. Sometimes it's your inner frequency refusing to stay where it no longer belongs. Take a slow breath. Imagine standing in front of an enormous door made of pure golden light. You don't know what is behind it. You only know that you've been walking toward it your entire life. Every disappointment, every failure, every long night when you wondered if life had forgotten you. Each one quietly brought you one step closer. Here's what almost nobody tells you. The biggest block to abundance is rarely outside of you. It is believing that the door is locked, when, in reality, it has been waiting for you to notice that it was never locked at all. The moment you stop begging life to choose you, life starts rearranging itself around your frequency. Read that again in your mind, because that single idea has changed countless lives. But this raises a bigger question. If the door was never locked, who convinced you it was? And why did it feel so real? We're about to uncover that. But before we go deeper, if this message already feels strangely personal, take 1 second to like this video, subscribe, and write, "I receive abundance," in the comments. Not because those words create magic, but because every meaningful change begins with a decision you make on purpose. Now, let me tell you about someone named Elian. He spent years believing the world was working against him. No matter how hard he tried, every opportunity slipped away at the last second. Until one ordinary morning, he noticed something so small. Most people would have ignored it. Yet that tiny moment revealed a truth about abundance that completely changed the direction of his life. And once you see what he discovered, you may never look at your own struggles the same way again. Elian wasn't rich. He didn't wake up one morning with a perfect life. In fact, most people looking at him would have said he was unlucky. He worked hard. He stayed honest. He kept showing up. Yet somehow, every breakthrough stopped just before reaching him. At least, that's what he believed. Then something unexpected happened. One quiet morning, while walking through a nearly empty park before sunrise, he noticed an old man sitting alone on a wooden bench. The man wasn't reading. He wasn't using a phone. The old man picked up a small radio from the bench. It looked old, almost forgotten. He turned the dial. Static. Nothing but noise. Slowly, very slowly, he adjusted it. Suddenly, a clear melody filled the air. The old man smiled. The music didn't suddenly appear, he said. It was always here. The radio simply became able to receive it. Elian looked at the radio, then back at the man. "I don't understand." "You will," the old man replied. "You've spent years trying to force abundance to arrive, while your own signal was buried under fear, doubt, and the belief that life owed you proof before you could believe." Those words landed harder than Elian expected, because deep inside, he knew they were true. He had been waiting for success before allowing himself to feel successful, waiting for money before feeling secure, waiting for love before believing he was worthy of it. Everything depended on something outside of him changing first. Now listen carefully. How many times have you told yourself, When I finally get that opportunity, then I'll relax. When more money comes, then I'll feel safe. When life improves, then I'll believe in myself. What if that order has always been backwards? Not because thinking positively magically creates wealth, but because the way you see yourself quietly changes the choices you make, the risks you take, the people you notice, and the opportunities you act on. That is where your frequency begins to change. It isn't pretending problems don't exist. It's refusing to let those problems define your identity. Abundance rarely knocks on the loudest door. It enters the one that quietly believes it belongs. Elian left the park carrying more questions than answers. But something inside him had shifted. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just enough to make him notice things he had overlooked for years. And what he discovered over the next 7 days made him question everything he thought he knew about luck. Because the signs weren't appearing around him. They had been appearing all along. During the next 7 days, Elian didn't win the lottery. He didn't suddenly receive a dream job. Nothing dramatic happened. At least, not on the outside. The real change was much quieter. On the first day, he caught himself saying, "Things never work out for me." He stopped. Not because someone told him to stay positive, but because he finally heard how often he had been repeating the same story. He asked himself a different question. What if this isn't the only story I can tell? That single pause changed the way he walked into the rest of his day. On the second day, an old friend called. Months earlier, Elian would have ignored the call, convinced it wouldn't matter. This time he answered. The conversation wasn't about money. It wasn't about success. But before hanging up, his friend casually mentioned a small project that needed help. Nothing guaranteed. Just an opportunity. The old version of Elian would have dismissed it as too small. Instead, he said yes. Now think about your own life. How many opportunities have looked too ordinary to matter? How many blessings arrived wearing simple clothes instead of grand announcements? Most people expect abundance to arrive like a storm. But often, it enters like a quiet knock that almost everyone ignores. On the third day, Elian noticed something else. The people who constantly complained seemed uncomfortable around him. Not because he argued with them, but because he had stopped feeding the same conversations. He no longer spent hours proving how unfair life was. Instead, he listened more, observed more, complained less. And something surprising happened. New people began entering his life. Not all at once. One conversation here. One introduction there. One unexpected invitation. It was as if the path ahead had always been there, hidden behind the noise he carried every day. Here's what almost nobody realizes. Your attention is like sunlight. Whatever you keep shining it on begins to grow inside your world. If your attention stays trapped in fear, fear starts making every decision for you. If your attention begins searching for possibilities, you start seeing doors that were invisible before. That isn't magic. It's the quiet power of changing what your mind notices. Your future changes the moment your attention stops guarding yesterday and starts recognizing tomorrow. By the end of the week, Elian returned to the same park. The old man was waiting. Before Elian could speak, the old man asked one question. So, what have you actually gained this week? Elian thought for a moment. No fortune. No miracle. But somehow, I don't feel blocked anymore. The old man smiled. Exactly. Because abundance doesn't begin when your pockets become full. It begins when your identity no longer agrees with scarcity. Those words echoed through Elian's mind. For the first time, he realized the invisible wall he had been fighting wasn't standing in front of him. It had been standing inside him. But that realization opened an even bigger mystery. If changing his identity could unlock so much, what would happen when life decided to test that new identity? Because every true transformation is followed by one final challenge. And Elian had no idea it was already on its way. A few days later, the test arrived. It didn't look like an opportunity. It looked like another disappointment. The small project Elian had accepted was suddenly put on hold. The client stopped replying. The payment he expected never came. For a brief moment, the old thoughts rushed back. See? Nothing has changed. You were wrong. His chest tightened. His mind searched for proof that the old story was still true. Have you ever noticed how quickly doubt returns? It doesn't knock politely. It walks in as if it still owns the place. Elian almost believed it. Almost. Then he remembered the old man's radio. The signal hadn't disappeared when static returned. The music was still there. The radio simply needed to stay tuned. That thought changed everything. Instead of calling the project a failure, he called it a pause. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he asked, "What can I do while this door is quiet?" That single question led him somewhere unexpected. He spent the next few days improving his skills. He organized old ideas he had never finished. He reached out to people he had been too afraid to contact. Most never replied. Some politely declined. But one message, one simple reply, changed the direction of everything. A woman he had met nearly a year earlier answered with only one sentence. "I've been looking for someone exactly like you." Elian stared at the screen. Not because the words guaranteed success, but because they arrived from a connection he had almost forgotten. Now think about your own life. How many seeds have you planted that haven't grown yet? How many conversations, acts of kindness, hours of learning, quiet sacrifices are still beneath the surface, waiting for the right season? The world often makes us believe that if results aren't immediate, nothing is happening. But nature doesn't work that way. A tree spends years strengthening its roots before anyone celebrates its height. Why should your life be different? Here's what no one tells you. Sometimes the delay isn't protecting the opportunity. It's protecting the person who is about to receive it. Because if abundance arrives before you're ready to carry it, you may lose it as quickly as you found it. The greatest blessings don't arrive when you demand them. They arrive when you've quietly become the person who can keep them. Days later, the pause project came back. Not only did it move forward, the client recommended Elian to others. One opportunity became 3. 3 became 5. Not overnight, but steadily. For the first time, abundance didn't feel like luck. It felt like a relationship he had finally stopped resisting. Yet something even more surprising began happening. The changes were no longer limited to work. His conversations became lighter. His sleep became calmer. His decisions became clearer. People started saying the same strange thing. "You seem different." They couldn't explain it. Neither could Elian. But deep inside, he knew he had crossed an invisible threshold. Still, the old man had one final lesson left. A lesson that wasn't about money or success, but about the hidden reason this video may have found you at exactly this moment. And once you hear it, you may never question your own path the same way again. The next morning, Elian returned to the park one last time. The bench was empty. The old man was gone. For a second, he wondered if he had imagined every conversation. Then he noticed something resting on the bench. It was the old radio. Beside it lay a folded piece of paper. He opened it. Only one sentence was written inside. "When you stop chasing the signal, you become the signal." Elian stood completely still. The wind moved through the trees. Birds crossed the bright morning sky. Nothing extraordinary was happening around him. Yet everything felt different inside him. He finally understood. The old man had never been trying to teach him how to attract abundance. He had been teaching him how to stop pushing it away. Now listen carefully. Maybe that's why this video found you today. Not because it carries some hidden power. Not because your future is already written. But because it invited you to pause and notice something you may have been overlooking. Think back over the last few months. Were there moments when you learned something difficult, became more patient, tried again after failing, helped someone without expecting anything back, or took one small step even while you were afraid? Those moments matter. They shape how you see yourself, and that changes the choices you make next. Sometimes we wait for life to prove we're capable, but often, life begins to change after we start acting like someone who is willing to grow. That doesn't mean every dream comes true overnight. It doesn't mean every obstacle disappears. It means you stop measuring your future by your worst yesterday. And that is where real momentum begins. Abundance begins the day you stop asking, "Why not me?" and start asking, "What can I become today?" Close your eyes for just a moment. Take one slow breath. Imagine that golden door again. This time, you don't stand outside it. You walk through it. Not because someone finally opened it for you, but because you realized your hand had been on the handle all along. If this message spoke to you, don't let it end here. Write, "I choose growth" in the comments. Someone else may read those words at exactly the moment they need them. Share this video with the person who has been doubting themselves lately. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because the next message may arrive when you least expect it, but exactly when you're ready to hear it. Until then, keep moving forward. Keep learning. Keep becoming. Because the frequency that grows through consistent action, quiet confidence, and hope is one that no setback can silence. And perhaps that has been the real message waiting for you all along.